The film begins by showing us destitute land located around the Mexico border, the bright sun beating down heavily on it. The town appears worn and neglected, with damaged buildings and faded signs. Miguel, a young boy, was walking home when he notices a truck full of what looks like criminals passing by. He gets home and gets started on his homework while his mom Rosa makes them dinner. Suddenly, she receives a phone call from her brother, urgently instructing her to leave her house because the cartel was after them. In a different scene, we see Carlos beaten and executed after being told that his family would pay for his crimes. On the Arizona-Mexico border, we see Jim, a veteran and ranch owner, out for a hunt after a coyote had attacked one of his dogs. At a distance, he sees what he assumes to be immigration agents walk very closely to his ranch and reports it. After returning home, he receives a visit from the bank informing him that his ranch was going to be sold in 90 days because he was unable to make payments for about 6 months now. He goes around speaking to his friends asking for simple jobs so he can save his ranch, but it doesn't seem like things are gonna work out. That night, Jim has a few drinks with his daughter Sarah, who drives him back home. And after tucking him onto the couch, Sarah puts a blanket on him and leaves. The following morning, Jim heads out of town in his truck with his dog next to him, and suddenly a child runs in front of him, followed by his mother. Stopping them, Jim tells them that he would call Border Patrol to help them, but Rosa refuses, begging him to help them and offer him money. Although he feels sorry for them, Jim makes the call and offers them some water, and while he was speaking to them, a car arrives from the other side of the border and a group of men come out of it. One of the men tells Jim that they wanted him to hand over the woman and child, but Jim, being Liam Neeson and not having a good history with people that take away wives and daughters, refuses to comply. The men open fire, forcing him to do the same, and he manages to take out one of them. While he tries to get the mother and son into the truck and out of there, he finds out that the woman has been shot. The leader of the cartel, Mauricio, manages to jump through the fence just in time to cling to the back of Jim's truck. Jim manages to shake the man off in the middle of the desert and drives his truck away. As he returns, Mauricio finds out that Jim had killed his brother during the fight. On the road, Rosa dies after begging him to take her son to her cousin in Chicago and offers him money for the task. Devastated by his mother's passing, Miguel kneels in front of Rosa and starts crying. After the incident had unfolded, Sarah, who worked for Border Patrol, arrived with her team and claimed the child, telling Jim that Miguel would probably end up in foster care. Jim goes to the border control station to give his statement, but when he returns to his car, he finds that he's too exhausted to drive and decides to sleep inside the car. In the morning, he wakes up and sees strange-looking people coming through the border. Suddenly, he notices a bag that Rosa had been holding left in the back, and he finds out that it's actually full of money when he checks it. Although he felt like there was something strange at play, Jim decides to take the money and leave. But as he reaches the halfway point, a sudden memory of Rosa's desperate plea to protect her child floods his mind. Filled with determination and a touch of anger, he makes a firm decision to turn back. Approaching one of the officers, he asks about the child that they brought in the previous night, and to his astonishment, he learns that Miguel is being deported because the Mexican authorities believe that he has family waiting for him in his home country. Sensing the danger to the child, he tricks the guard into letting him see Miguel and then sneaks him out. Jim drives the boy away, but is unfortunately seen by the cartel waiting to take Miguel. Rushing to his ranch, Jim tries to grab all the things that he thought would be necessary for the trip, but when he returns, he finds that Miguel has already disappeared. Jim finds the child trying to escape, but has difficulty with the language barrier to explain the danger that he's in. After a few minutes of starting their journey, the cartel arrives at Jim's house, and after looking around for clues, they burn it to the ground. They then head to Arizona, where their base is set up, and one of their tech was ordered to find Jim. As Jim pulls into a gas station, he quickly dials Sarah's number to make things right, but Sarah was beyond furious with him. She demands that he brings the child back, revealing that the people chasing him have actually set his house on fire. And this really pisses him off, and Jim himself is fueled with determination. He firmly tells Sarah that he made a promise to the child's mother, and that he'll do whatever it takes to keep Miguel safe. Hanging up the phone, he uses his credit card to pay for gas before heading back on the road. Unaware that the cartel have their own tech guy, Jim had accidentally triggered the web that they set out for him, informing them of his whereabouts because he used his credit card. As they journey down the road, Jim finds out that Miguel can speak English flawlessly during a sudden outburst. Following Jim, Mauricio and his men arrive at the gas store and question the young clerk if whether she'd seen the people that they were tracking. When she confirms but refuses to show him the security tapes, he shoots her and finds out the direction that they were headed. He then rips off the camera router to avoid detection. On the road, Jim finds out that his truck was leaking from the gunshots of the previous night, and devoid of any options, he was forced to give his car to the shop for the night and stay in town. While they wait, Jim gets them food and asks Miguel some questions about the men who were chasing him, finally getting a proper introduction. The following morning, he gets his car from the shop and they head back on the road, and a few minutes later, they're stopped by a patrol car with a police officer who seems to be acting suspiciously. Realizing that he's been caught, the officer tries to attack Jim, but he manages to fight him off and incapacitates him and takes his keys. Jim and Miguel manage to escape just in the nick of time before Mauricio and his men arrive. After losing his guns to the fraudulent officer, Jim is forced to buy some more from a local store. When he feels that they're safe enough, Jim calls his daughter and informs her about his situation. Sarah explains that the man after him was a relentless cartel soldier who would not give up until he finds him. Finally convincing him, Jim relents and agrees to turn the child in, but agrees that he would only give Miguel to her. Getting some supplies from a nearby convenience store, Jim parks his car out of sight and books them a hotel using only cash. After settling in, he's woken up by his dog whimpering, asking to be let out. Jim opens the door and then sees Mauricio and the rest of the cartel men in the checking office murdering the clerk. Shocked by their sudden appearance, Jim rushes Miguel awake and drags him out of the room, and the two rush toward the car while the men followed close behind, but the sound of sirens close by changed their minds from the pursuit. Telling Miguel to wait in the truck, Jim goes back for his dog, but he watches as Mauricio shoots it. Angry about losing his dog, Jim loses his cool and yells at Miguel, telling him that it was a mistake helping him and that he would be taking him back. Miguel confronts Jim about the money and then runs away for a second time, and feeling bad about the outburst, Jim follows the boy and finds him walking by the side of the road. After apologizing to Miguel, he asks him back into the car and promises to take him to Chicago. Jim can see the child is in pain about his mother's death, so he takes him to a church they find on the road and has a priest say a sermon for Rosa. Now that he's made his final decision, Jim finds a phone to call Sarah and informs her that he's taking the child to his family. Sarah begs him to reconsider, explaining that there would be nothing that she could do for him if he goes on this path, but he was already adamant. Before they start their journey, Jim takes a gun and shows Miguel how to shoot, using cans as trigger practice. Miguel expresses his deep desire to one day kill the men that murdered his mom, but Jim explains that there was nothing satisfying about taking another man's life, using himself as an example. And with a surge of determination, they contact other fractions of their gang to keep a vigilant eye out for Jim's trail. The following day, as Jim and Miguel pass by the highway, he notices two scary-looking dudes waiting for them. Trying to avoid leading them straight to Miguel's new family, Jim takes a detour, but is caught up by Mauricio and his men. Although they make their first escape, Jim's car breaks down and he's forced to make a stand behind the car. He manages to hit the wheels of Mauricio's car, causing it to flip over, and Mauricio and two of his men survive and follow Jim's trail to a barn nearby. Choosing a strategic place, Jim gets ready to shoot on one of the windows and waits for the men to come. Managing to get them off guard, he takes down one of them but gives off his position. Using his sniper skills, Jim also takes out Mauricio's last man, leaving him to be the only survivor. While Jim had left Miguel alone to take out the cartel's men, the boy was caught by Mauricio, who claimed that he would take Miguel and turn him into a soldier. In a fatal moment, Mauricio pressures Miguel to aim his gun at Jim, however the memory of Jim's teaching floods Miguel's mind, prompting him to make a split-second decision. With nerves of steel, he disintegrates the magazine just in time. The battle intensifies until, with a stroke of luck, Jim is nicked by a small knife. In a moment of unexpected chaos, Miguel's gunshot provides the perfect opportunity for Jim to seize the gun and retaliate. With a swift and decisive action, he aims at Mauricio's stomach and fires the gun. As Mauricio's life slips away, he desperately pleads for mercy, offering Jim's cherished Medal of Honor in a final act of surrender. Jim, with a mix of determination and compassion, leaves a single bullet in the gun and places it on the ground, presenting Mauricio with a choice of either a swift end or suffering. As Jim and Miguel walk away, they hear a gunshot and assume Mauricio has chosen to off himself, and as promised, Jim takes Miguel to Chicago and drops him off at his family's house. Jim and Miguel share one last look before the boy is warmly greeted by his aunt and grandparents, and with a sigh of relief, Jim leaves knowing that the child is in good hands. And the movie ends as he settles into a bus seat and he gently tends to his wound and gazes out at the wide open landscape, lost in thought. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave a comment, also subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye!